Andy Curtin, and I'm here with
Vivek Mahbubani.
If you want to find me online, check out at Andy Curtin, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. What are you plugging?
Today I'm plugging my website, funnyvivek.com, keeping it pure and clean.
I thought you were going to do, like, next week will be Twitch.
Yeah. Follow me on Twitch. I'm going to try one game and fail at it and be like, forget Twitch.
It's amazing. If you check out the description of the podcast, I've put in a link to every Wednesday I send out a newsletter with some random stuff. And also I have a blog on andycurtin.com you can check out. And if you're liking the podcast or not liking it, whatever, just subscribe. Hit the subscribe button because that's the best way to get more of us.
Yeah, because like if you really don't like the podcast, subscribe, let it download and delete it. That feeling of rejection, it's really good.
Yeah, you'll feel better about yourself.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, I'm still not listening to you guys.
Just download it 20 times each episode.
Yeah, think of it this way. It's like if you subscribe to us, it's like us hitting on you every once a week and you going, no. All right?
And then how empowered do you feel?
Yeah, what a great way to start the Monday.
Hey, so you're doing shows again. Look at this guy.
Oh, look at us. Things are happening, man. I mean, the English scene has been picking up and stuff. The Cantonese scene was like, oh, I see you, I raise you.
I feel like the English scene's been crab walking sideways.
Yeah. It's like it's moving, but not actually going forward in a weird way.
It's doing something.
Yeah, it's doing like the river dance. I'm like, well, you are tapping the feet, but I don't really see you doing anything more than that.
So what's going on with Canto? Because Canto previously took longer to get going because I think the audiences were less.
Yeah.
A little bit more.
They're still a bit conservative.
A bit less cavalier than the whiteys.
A little bit extra mask is going to be on my face, everything covered as much as possible. So we're actually going to have 3 shows. Right after this, I go back, pack up, and we go head on down to set up the room. Yeah. So
where are you doing it?
We're doing it in Wanchai, this place called 7 Mallory Street, where we had a Laugh Festival a couple of years ago.
It's a good room.
Yeah, it's a nice, cozy room. And so the problem now is that, with the whole regulation, you can only fill half the room. So I think we're only allowed to see maybe 28 people maximum. We've got the bigger room today.
Hey, it's something.
It's something, yeah. So we have a show 3:30, 5:30, and 8 o'clock. We're doing a Cantonese improv
Busy boy.
show.
Dude, you're going to be dead.
Oh, I guarantee. By 8 o'clock, I told the guys, I'm like, I'm not moving anything today. Yeah, I told them, like, that's why normally I'm part of the moving crew in the beginning, in the mornings.
Yeah.
Today I'm hanging out with you here talking because they're doing the work. And I'm like, guys, I can't do it anymore.
That's when you know you're the big guns.
Oh, yeah, that's right. When everyone's like, okay, we got to meet at 12. I'm like, I will arrive there at 1.
And I had another little incident happen to me. I got to eat some humble pie because I was bragging about all my luxury experiences in private hospitals. But now that I'm unemployed, I got no insurance, so I sliced my knee open on a construction site, as one does, and I ended up in the public hospital. You were very helpful, Queen Mary. I mean, they know how to help people.
Yeah,
I give them that. They don't charge you much.
Yeah, they won't charge you much. I mean, like I said, do you want your time or do you want your money?
It's so funny. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
I was like doing the maths. I was like, all right, it's going to cost me this much to go to the other hospital. Would I do a gig if it took this much time and cost that much money? You bet your sweet ass I'd do that gig.
Yeah,
so,
there you go.
Yeah. So I just performed to the people in the ER.
Exactly, without any laughter. So
I got a few chuckles.
Well, I mean, I'm sure you got some material, some ideas, or at least an experience you can share with your grandkids.
It was... That is a zoo, the ER room.
Oh, let me tell you. So the ER room, you have some days where you go in there and they put up a big sign that says waiting time is minimum 3 hours.
So that's when there's like a big car crash or something?
Car crash or the doctor's in a bad mood, stuff like that.
Really?
Yeah, when they're like, it's Saturday, I want to go out for drinks tonight, so I'm not going to speed up, whatever. I'm going to be done with this and walk away when my shift ends. Stuff like that.
Brutal.
Yeah, so I remember very significantly, whenever we've had to go to the ER, my first thought is, all right, books, stuff to keep me occupied. I'm not thinking like, okay, how can I take care of myself, food and everything. I'm like, just make sure I can kill 3 hours easy.
Yeah. If I'd been able to take stuff with me, it would have been a very different experience. But, man, the people coming in, there was like... They had a guy who was like shackled, hands tied to his feet, and like 5 officers around him.
Yeah.
And like this is the difference between like the West and Hong Kong. Is like in the West, I'd be looking at him like, oh no, this guy, I can't, don't look at him.
Get away from him.
He might have, who knows who he just killed.
Yeah.
In Hong Kong, I'm like, he's probably just loves his city.
Yeah, he's fighting for what he believes in.
Probably did another.
Tripped, got his ankle twisted. He's like, the cops like, we got you.
Yeah.
He's like, but my ankle hurts. Like, well, we
We're
still
going
got
to put a
you.
thermometer in your butt before we take you to Shenzhen.
That's the first thing, right? That's like how they tag you. Boop, put it in there.
And there was another dude. I mean, I don't want to make light of it, but there was an Indian guy who his family looked really normal. I think he was just having like a full-blown mental breakdown. But when they were, I had to get 5 stitches in my knee.
Yeah.
And this nurse, right, she was just a pro. Like, I don't know how many stitches she's put in people, but it's
Yeah.
in the millions.
Yeah.
Like, it was just nothing for her.
Yeah.
And I'm there like, am I gonna live? And she's
Yeah.
like, this is tiny.
Yeah, this
You know,
is nothing.
for her.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't want to see what you think big is, because
Yeah.
it wasn't small.
Yeah.
I had 5 stitches in a deep cut, but as she's stitching, this guy's in the next room
Yeah.
having like a screaming mental breakdown.
No.
And she didn't even flinch. Like
Yeah.
nothing.
Wow.
She's just like stitching.
Yeah.
Got to stitch.
Yeah. I think it's one of those
She
office
could have
mentality.
stitched while she was being shot at. I'm 100% sure of
Pew,
it.
pew, pew. And she's like, that's
like-
number 4.
Yeah, 2 hours wait.
Yeah. I think that's like the office mentality here in Hong Kong is like just focus on your work.
Yeah.
Don't try to help anyone. You're going to get in trouble if you do, and you're going to have to do the job for them. I didn't hear nothing. I don't see nothing. I don't say nothing.
That's amazing. I feel bad because she was a saint. I feel bad saying that she'd done anything wrong, but yeah, that seems like 100% right.
Yeah. I'm pretty. And to be very honest with you, if you've been in a ward in Hong Kong as well, like the government hospital wards, you will realize that after a certain time, like when you first walk in, right, and you go lie down, you're like, oh, this guy next door is the next bed is screaming. This guy will stay awake. This guy won't sleep. Stuff like that. By the 3rd day, you're like, ignore him. It's fine. The
Yeah.
guy says the same stuff. He's repeating his bits all the time.
Yeah.
Save me.
He's just getting ready for open
Yeah,
mic.
he's just doing that stuff. I'm like, this guy is clearly he's speaking what he's thinking, but he's thinking the same stuff. So after a while, you're like, I don't care. It's just noise to me now.
Yeah, you got to survive somehow. I mean, I always said that about like living in Shanghai.
Yeah.
Is people just have this like tunnel vision when they walk around,
Yeah.
and as an outsider, you when you see the negative consequences that they'll walk into you or they'll block a bunch of people.
Yeah.
You're like, how could you be so selfish?
Yeah.
But then you realize, well, that's the only way they can
Get through.
handle being in a crowd of 1 million people all the time.
Yeah. I think in its own way, even Hong Kong, you'll get guys like
There's a
just-
reason to it.
Yeah, I mean, after a while, they've just like lived in their own world. They're like, look, there are 7 million people in a city that's this compact. I only see me. That's all I see.
Yeah, and I also think that, I always say this about driving, but I think it's true of like just being in public places is in the West, we have this heightened sense of,
Space?
yeah, but also like our right to our space.
Oh, yeah. Personal
and we can
space.
do that because there's enough space.
Yeah.
And if you're driving, like the idea, it's so crazy to me after living here for 11 years, thinking that this would be an issue is like if you drive into someone's lane
Yeah.
in front of them,
Yeah.
they'll stop at the lights and beat the crap out of you. That's the thing is like here, they'll let you cut in.
They'll beep
They
you.
won't react.
Well, at
It's
most they'll
that's-
beep you a bit, be like, I acknowledge your stupidity,
Well, it's
but
like,
I got stuff to do.
where's the compromise point? Like in the West, the compromise point is we're all going to agree that we have our own space.
Yeah.
But if you break that rule,
Yeah.
then they just this like barbaric behavior
Yeah,
ensues.
yeah.
Whereas here, they're like, we're not going to respect your space at all.
Yeah, done.
But if you don't respect my space, that's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
problem.
Yeah, just cut the stuff. Don't waste time with the whole. I
I'm
gotta
not
deal
gonna
with the
get angry. What do you think I'm going to beat you
I
up
got-
because
I
you
got stuff
cut
to
me
do.
off?
Yeah, I'm in a rush.
I gotta
That's
go.
the good thing about being in a rush and having no space. You're like, I got stuff to do.
Yeah.
Again, there's a guy
I'll
losing
push
his
it.
mind.
I'll push a grandma over.
Right,
I got to
exactly.
get to work.
Bringing us back to why that nurse could stitch you so well is that she's in her own little world. The guy's losing his mind over there. She's like, look, I don't have time for that stuff. Right? He's probably cut someone else's lane or something. Irrelevant to me because we don't have
Yeah, there
personal
you go.
space. It's useless. He won't touch me. I don't care.
Yeah, I'm like, obviously I don't want to do it to me, but I'd be fascinated, like, the extreme conditions under which this lady could still stitch people up. You know what I mean? Like, just like a bus
Yeah.
that's...
You should be glad she wasn't talking to someone else while she was doing the
You
stitching.
know what? I asked her to put her phone down.
Yeah. She's like, one hand is okay. You're like, I'd like it if the other
I'm
hand
like,
was
can we
ready.
do two? Can we do two?
Yeah,
Just,
yeah,
Just for,
yeah.
Just for at least 4 of the 5 stitches.
Yeah, let's not do a bar trick with the cherry stem, okay? Let's not do that with the stitching today. No,
Yeah.
but even when they take blood, I've had, like I said, the blood taking is one of the most fascinating experiences because, like, you've got like 400 people at a time lining up to take their blood, right? And you have the basically the station for blood taking. Okay, so the whole hospital,
Just giving blood?
basically for sample for testing.
All right, not
Yeah.
like people donating.
Yeah, not
right?
donating. Donating is much nicer. That okay, sit back, relax, have some orange juice, stuff
They're
like.
like, thank you.
Yeah, here they're like they just take your blood and they give you a little cotton, not even come with a little pad and like go away. Yeah. They don't even tell you anything. They're like, you just have to walk outside and sit alone and just wait until you heal yourself.
Yeah, that's brutal. Yeah, I mean,
But speaking of space, though, there's one space that no matter where you are, Western country or Eastern country, you have the same amount, and that's inner space.
what? Oh my God, you're blowing my mind right now. It's like, where is he going with this?
I want to talk about.
In Hong Kong, you don't even have inner space. Let's
yeah,
be
you
honest.
don't. Yeah, it's just all congested. You're like,
You're
my
like-
guilt.
Why is my guilt so close to my anxiety? There's like a Hong Kong apartment in your head.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. That's why everyone's so skinny. We don't have that space for fat.
I love that. That's you should do that as a bit. That's funny. I just think that here's what my starting point to this idea of comedians and spirituality
Yeah.
is. First of all, there's this idea that comedians are all broken,
Yeah.
which is not true.
I put it this way, in the words of that sounds like Deepak Chopra, everyone's broken.
But I agree with you.
Yeah.
That's the thing is it's like I think the difference is that comedians are more likely to tell you all
they're
the
broken,
things they're
right?
thinking
Yeah.
than a person in an office.
Yeah.
You know, like the people around the average person on the metro
Yeah.
doesn't have a forum where they're telling everyone in the room
Yeah.
the most perverted things they've thought of.
Yeah. So I think
Because they don't, but it's just they don't have that
platform,
that-
yeah.
Yeah, it's not part of what they do.
Yeah.
Are they less broken?
Yeah.
No chance. No way.
I mean, I put it this way. I was talking to someone the other day. I said it's kind of like this: is like two people live in their own houses. One person's house has a mirror. The other person's house doesn't. Now, the person without the mirror thinks they're fit because they never have an idea what they look like. Whereas the guy with the mirror all day is thinking like, oh my God, I'm terrible. I'm unfit, and look at my body shape and everything. So comedians are the ones with the mirrors, and we're constantly looking at it and thinking like, oh my God, I need to do something. And we vent, we try to deal with it. Whereas other people, your body shape is just as bad as us. But like you said, no platform.
Yeah.
Right?
What we're really getting at is you're also a fucking
Yeah,
mess.
exactly. Just that we do it and we talk about it.
Now, that's not to say that some comedians aren't broken, because
Yeah.
clearly a lot of them are.
Oh, trust me, yeah.
And very broken.
Yeah.
And I've also found that, to be a good comedian, generally, you need to have something together in your life.
Yeah.
Whereas the really, really messy stuff you see is at the bottom of the pile with open mics.
Yeah.
And open mics, going back to the point of like them not having a platform to speak their craziness, is like the open mic, which is an open platform to everyone, is really attractive to people who are super broken
Yeah.
and have no other and are looking for a platform like that.
Yeah.
So it's like normal that you see at an open mic someone who's like genuinely mentally unwell
Yeah.
come in, but that's just the guy on the MTR that's figured out that this is the place he could tell people about his what he does to poodles on weekends.
Exactly. And the good thing is because it's open mic, everyone's in the mood of like, oh, it's a joke.
Yeah, he doesn't really do that to
Oh,
cats.
I'm sure it's a bad punchline. That's all it is. No, but I'll put it this way: is that any creative outlet actually requires you to a certain extent have that ability to self-reflect, and through self-reflection, you kind of start thinking the whole like spirituality thing. You
Yeah.
know?
Well, spirituality is a messy word.
Yeah, because it gets a little bit religious, a little bit soul searching, and it's too new
suddenly
age.
suddenly we're using crystals and
Yeah, I mean like
as deodorant.
yeah.
Whereas like it's on a fundamental level, it's really the practice of self-observation,
Yeah.
which is the beginning of stand-up comedy in many ways.
Correct.
Dude, on that point about like not thinking that it's just a joke.
Yeah.
We had a guy in Shanghai who was caught stealing and sent to prison for a really long time, and everyone's like, I never saw it coming. And then, like maybe a month later, someone was like, we had all those jokes about stealing. And I literally didn't
Yeah.
put it together.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, those were jokes.
Yeah.
He's like, this guy's been telling us he's a thief
Yeah, all along.
several times a week
Yeah.
for ages. And
Man, and that tells you why we stay broken is that we think people are listening, but they're not. Right? Here we are opening our souls to the audience, trying to let them know we're struggling, and they're like,
But it's also so funny when you think about, like, you know, when there's like someone, like, there's a terrorist attack and the next door neighbor's like, you know, he was quiet, you know, he
Yeah.
was a nice person. I never saw it coming, you know.
Yeah.
Like, we were saying that and we're like, there's video footage of him telling us.
Yeah, that's always the case, right?
Like, I never saw it coming. I didn't think
it's just
that
the way he says it or something. You're kind of like, oh, okay, I
when
see where
people
he's
are
going. with
laughing
it.
at the end of it, you don't think
Yeah,
they're actual
that's why.
criminals.
And that's why you get all the crazy people at like the open mic nights, because then you have them say stuff and you're like, oh, that was pretty funny. And then it only takes a while after you're like, something's not right. But then
Yeah.
if you do something in the normal world that makes you go, I see why this guy's doing that on stage now.
Yeah, he is a creep.
Yeah.
But I also think I do think that comedians on average are like to me, being funny is so independent of any other characteristic.
yeah.
Like, I've seen funny housewives,
Yeah.
stand up, you know, I've seen funny people that are businessmen, bankers,
Yeah.
absolute homeless people.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah.
it just, for whatever reason, just the ability to be funny, it has no connection to your external.
Yeah. I mean, like, you literally
Circumstances.
could be a completely different person on that stage because the way you're sharing it. I think comedy, like, I think Tom Cotter talked to me about the vulnerability factor, that you have to be able to be vulnerable on stage and talk from, like, the genuine place where you're shaking. And the audience feels that. And they go like, oh, that's pretty funny now that you've admitted that that's what you're thinking. And then they can relate because they're not the one saying it.
Yeah,
They're
that's
just-
not the first thing I think when I think about Tom Cotter's act.
Oh, yeah, sure. He's just straight one-liners, bam, bam, bam. And
He's like,
here-
you've got to be vulnerable. So, knock, knock. You know.
yeah, exactly.
He's,
Right over
he's,
there.
he's a great
funny.
comic. I just didn't.
Yeah,
vulnerability is not the first thing that comes into my mind when I think about his act.
Because his act is more, he's confident. He's like way ahead of the audience.
Super hyper confident,
Yeah,
right?
you know, and you're thinking this guy's like one step ahead of me, and I'm trying to chase up to his next punchline. And here
Yeah.
he's talking to you like, be vulnerable. Let them know that you're shaking. It's like, oh, okay, you don't seem to be doing that.
I also think that there's like, it's hard to be too prescriptive about what stand-up comedy is.
Yeah.
Because you always immediately think of like the exceptions to the rule.
Yeah.
But certainly a lot of people channel like the things that are emotional for them into humor. And I think rather than that being the source of humor, I think
Yeah.
I look at it a different way. It's like, you know, Ali Wong said she won't write a joke about something unless it makes her angry.
Okay, yeah.
And I think that comedians can write jokes about anything, but when they write jokes about topics that are emotionally charged for themselves,
Yeah.
that people are more likely to connect to that material,
Yeah.
and they'll get the biggest reaction, and then suddenly the comedian knows that, and they end up just writing more in
Yeah.
that direction. And so, like, emotional disruption can be, you know, it isn't
Yeah.
necessarily, but can be a huge source of, you know, material and an act and all of that.
I mean, like, comedy equals tragedy plus time, right? And usually with tragedy, that's the moment you kind of rethink your life, or, you know, you're trying to rethink the situation. What am I doing with myself? Stuff like that. And ultimately, like, that's the difference when you have the comedian writing the joke because he or she is writing it from where they want to come from versus writing for the audience versus writing
Sure.
it for corporate or private events.
But I also think that there's an element of all of it in there.
Yeah.
And I say that because the jokes that you really want to do
Yeah.
generally don't work.
Yeah.
And so to some extent, you do have to do what the audience wants.
Yeah.
You know,
You have to
but it's
twist
a
it in a
balancing
way.
act
Yeah.
of like, am I like primarily doing
Yeah.
this for them, or am I finding out what of the stuff that I want to do can work
Yeah.
in
Yeah,
front
yeah.
of people?
So I think like that's the thing with the whole spirituality thing is that sometimes you have those moments on stage where let's say, you know, you're doing something, your act is good and everything, then you kind of get off stage, you're like, well, you know, does that satisfy me? Is it more about, you know, enjoying it on stage? Is it about the money? I mean, look, as a comedian who, yes, luckily gets booked for a lot of corporate gigs and stuff like that, after a while, like I remember one time a couple of years ago, I was doing like corporate gigs. I was really busy in November. And I'd have like gigs, maybe 2 gigs a week. And it was awesome,
Damn,
right? That was
you
pretty
must have
badass,
been-
right? I was like, wow, this is the dream come true,
That
right?
is a good run.
But by the end of that month, I was like, what
Dead
am I-
on the inside?
Yeah, I was completely dead because
Yeah.
like every time I'd go there, you get these guys laughing at the lamest punchlines, you know, and I'm doing the same corporate set, and I'm like, this is old stuff, and this is like not what I want to be talking about right now, but I have to because it's not like you guys want to hear me open up my life and everything. You know, so it's kind of like, for example, I might have problems that I've been trying to work around. I want to joke about, but a corporate environment, they don't want to hear about me going to the hospital, right? Right? They want to hear about like, hey, so the other day, I'm in the lift, right? Stuff like that. So
you ever notice how PowerPoint presentations are? Yeah, but that's the work,
Yeah, I know, and the worst is like sometimes you do that same bit over and over again, and like I'm like I just don't want to open with that bit. I just don't. I need another bit.
Dude, I have that. Yeah, right? I got some bits where I'm just like, if I start doing it, the more they laugh, the more I hate myself.
Yeah, I'm like, we're still doing this.
Colin Quinn said in that movie, the comedian, Seinfeld's movie, Colin Quinn was saying, you're doing well when you're killing, and inside you're just like, ugh, these people are idiots.
Yeah. Then you're doing well.
Like, that's what you're,
financially or business wise.
No, he meant like you're on stage, you're doing well.
Okay, yeah.
Like
I see.
Your comedy chops are.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, like there are times. I'll put it this way: is that very rarely would I feel that at a comedy club. But I would definitely feel that a lot of times at private events. Not necessarily corporate, but just private events. Because what you will find is that the private events, sometimes you always have the one uncle who's like, that the guy who's like always the funny guy in the family.
Yuck.
And you get like, I just remember, and everyone's like, pointing at that guy. Oh, make fun of him. I'm like, But
then people are always like, all right, we want to book a comedian. We'd like you to make jokes about this person. It's like, you're paying me for 4 hours.
Yeah.
If I'm going to write jokes about this person, I'm going to need to add 20 hours because that's how long it takes.
Yeah, exactly.
If you want good material.
Yeah. And it's hard to explain. That's why
it's not even 20 hours. Like
it's way more, depending on the person as well. Some people are just so boring. You're like, this is not happening. It'll take 20 lifetimes.
Can I make fun of the wall? This wall has more personality
exactly. Look
than
at
your
that paint.
Funny uncle.
Yeah, right. You get that. But coming back to the whole spirituality thing, I mean, I'm sure you've had moments where, during your whole comedy career, where you've had those moments where you're kind of lost.
Every day, buddy.
Yeah, right. But the ones where you're like really lost, like you're like, oh my God, I really don't know what the hell I'm doing. Is this what I want?
Yeah, 100%. Well, like, I don't think that's just spirituality. I think that also that's a function of we have a structureless industry in many ways.
Yeah.
Like, if you're a lawyer... Like, I can tell you, I can today find out where you should be after a year, after 3 years, after 5 years, make partner, whatever. But like stand-up, you can get in a club, you get in a special, but they're pretty loose indicators.
Yeah, you have no idea, right?
Yeah.
There's no proper milestone. Oh, I achieved this. I've got that award.
You've got to find it yourself. You've got to find the structure and then achieve it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you find the structure and you can't achieve it,
Yeah. I mean,
it's beyond you, it's not possible or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, the thing, like you said, is that there's no fixed goal, right? So it's a really weird thing where how do you motivate yourself? How do you stay disciplined? So that comes back to something I always like to do is that I kind of compare where I was this time last year versus where I am now.
That's good.
That's kind of my way to gauge am I improving. But then at the same time, you also get to a point of the diminishing marginal returns where like I'm trying to push more. I'm like, do I still need to push that hard anymore? Or is it time to maybe change the game and go a completely different route? So like you said, it's a lot of self-reflection because there's no fixed road. There's no like $1 million roundtable committee group that you kind of look up to and say, oh, one day I want to do that. I mean, yeah, you might say Netflix
you have
specials.
peers and stuff.
Yeah, you have that. I mean,
but that's also a moving target. It's like Netflix specials are big now, but by the time we can get them, are they going to be big?
I mean, let's be very honest. I mean, if you got a Netflix special right now, it's not going to be as big a deal as an HBO special maybe in the 80s and 90s.
Oh, no way. No way.
That's what I mean. So to tell someone you have a Netflix special, they're like, well, good, but so?
I know plenty of people with Netflix specials. It wasn't that much money, and it didn't really do much for them.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, I'll put it this way. Tom Cotter was on AGT. He came second place.
And he came second?
He came second.
I knew he was on it. I didn't realize
he came second, dude.
America's Got Talent.
Yeah, America's Got Talent. And so I remember for the first year, there's a contract with, I think it's NBC or something, and then they take you around and everything. But because he didn't win, but he still gets to be very busy with them. But a year later, back to normal. Back to where you were.
It's interesting. Two things I would tie into this. Like, first of all, it's interesting you mentioned discipline because because discipline is such a necessary aspect of doing well in stand-up, that immediately makes the pool of people you're looking back at not as messy as people might like to think they are. Like, if this guy gets up on stage and he's crazy and wild stories, it's like, you don't realize how disciplined he is to be there.
Yeah, to get there,
and be doing that well. Yeah. That already sets him into a category of people that isn't probably what he seems.
Yeah.
He or she. And then...
Yeah, Because like guys like, let's say, Bill Bailey, Billy Connolly, and stuff like that, like on stage they're high energy, they're talking about losing their mind, but actually behind it is like a proper system
Yeah.
that they put together.
Oh, 100%.
You know, like I remember watching Bill Bailey do his bits with the horns, the bicycle horns, and he has this whole song that he does.
There's like a technical aspect to just learning how to do all of that.
Yeah,
like,
that one and combining it into an actual performance, I'm like, wow, this
phenomenal.
is actually,
Yeah.
Because like when you watched him perform one time, you're like, oh, this is chaotic. But you go to the same show the next night, and you go like, that's identical. He lost his mind at the identical spot. I remember watching at Melbourne.
Oh,
Comedy
that was
Festival.
like Dane Cook used to cry, and they're like, "Yeah, you're crying every night."
Yeah. And boom, right? That was like Sam Simmons. I remember in Australia, like he's one of these really wacky comedians that it's like Durian. You either like it or you don't. And I remember watching him the first time. I'm like, this guy's just losing his mind on stage. What are you doing? Is he throwing stuff around? Then I watched it the next night because I wanted to compare. I'm like, he's literally throwing the exact same box, tripping over the exact same thing, spilling just the right amount.
Oh, so he was doing like a Kaufman thing, like
yeah, like an Andy
like the
Kaufman
show's not going well, kind of.
because Sam Simmons does a lot of like he's losing his mind kind of things.
Really?
So I was just watching, I'm like, whoa. And even Wally Collins, he used to have these bits where he would like say some stuff and kind of like hold his laughter. And I would be like, okay, the whole laughter thing, I get it. You're trying to pretend you can't hold it. Then I watched the next time, I'm like, he holds his laughter at the exact same spots. Like he would know the whole like so, you know. I'm like, wow, that's identical to yesterday.
There's a musical element to it,
Yeah, exactly.
no doubt.
Yeah, and also I think you've done it so many times that it's the holding laughter becomes part of the act. So I think the whole discipline is that the more chaotic a comedian on stage very often actually requires a lot more systematic
Yeah, I believe
approach.
that. Yeah, I mean, Louis is a good example. Is
Yeah.
like he just looked like he was barely keeping himself together, and yet he's one of the most disciplined.
Yeah.
Or was,
Yeah.
not to comment on his other stuff, but in terms of the technical aspects of being a stand-up, he was profoundly disciplined compared to most acts.
Correct.
And the other thing is, like, people say, oh, all comedians are depressed, and it's kind of the same thing, you know.
Yeah.
But I will say this is interesting. I remember Robert Kelly and Gary Goldman, who had a special called The Great Depression. Have you seen it?
Oh, I'm not.
It is awesome.
Okay.
So he had severe depression, right? And he wrote a special about overcoming it, and it's one of the best specials that's ever been made. I mean, you know Gary Goldman, right?
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
super funny. And I mean, he's an example of a comedian who's got depression, but it was interesting. He was having a conversation with Robert Kelly where they were like, there's this fear for comedians that are depressed that if they fix themselves, they'll stop being funny.
Yeah. So that's actually one thing I had before where I have this fear of drinking or doing any sort of, let's say, like basically people say, have a drink before your show or stuff like that.
Oh, dude, I'm the same. I don't want
Yeah.
to drink. I don't want to be out of it.
Yeah. Not just that. I'm more worried that I'll be funnier with a drink in me.
Interesting.
So that's always been my rule because I always
I've got to
felt-
make you drink before a show.
And then I go on stage like, yeah, you don't need to drink.
No, it takes my edge away.
Oh, okay. For me, my whole life actually, I've always had this thing. See, the reason why I don't even smoke is because I don't want to have to suddenly depend on the cigarette to be good at what I'm doing. You got the same with drinking. So I'm not a big drinker because of that. I'm like, what if I'm
Dude, that's
better?
so funny. You're like, the reason I don't smoke, cancer? No.
Yeah.
It's because I want to be
improvement.
funnier.
Yeah. I don't want improvement with this. The
So
bypass.
like, it was like if you figured out that it would make you
Yeah,
funnier, you're like,
yeah.
bring on the cancer, dude. I want to be funny.
Oh yeah, full on. But the thing is, I'm so selfish that I have to like, if I'm funny, I'm like, it's all me. It's all me.
Yeah, but I think that's the right strategy because the alternative, which I've seen so much of, is people use crutches to get better.
Yeah.
And crutches are like in a running race, jumping onto the ground.
Yeah.
It like might physically put you ahead for a moment,
Yeah.
but then suddenly you're on the ground.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
everybody else is still standing.
Yeah. I mean, so it depends on each person. Like, for example, some comedians, like before they get on stage, they have to take a moment to kind of, settle in their heads.
Get centered.
Yeah,
Sounds a little spiritual to me.
The little
Just give it
Yeah. So basically, for myself, very rarely would I need to be like left alone. Like, hey, don't talk to me. But I will need maybe like 30 seconds just to kind of like get in my head, get in the headspace of like, okay, I'm going on stage now. And one thing I do like to do is that I kind of psych myself before I go on stage, and I tell myself I deserve to be funny. That's kind of been my thing that I always do before I go on stage.
I like that.
Yeah, so it's one of these things that I crafted over the years of reading self-help books of like self-affirmations and stuff like that. But I was like, I don't want to say I am funny or this or that, where I'm telling myself, oh yeah, I'm funny. I'm like, I deserve to be funny is one of these things where I'm like, I'd put in the hard work. I prepared. I've done what I need to do. I've done my discipline. I paid my dues. I deserve to be funny now. And so that kind of gives me that confidence of like, okay, well, in that case, well, I guess I have to be funny now because I deserve it.
I love that. I would also like to see you bomb a show and start screaming at the audience that you deserve to be funny.
Yeah, I deserve to be funny, people.
I deserve to be funny.
Exactly. Look at this hard drive. This is all comedy.
So one thing I've noticed, though, over the years of bringing out, professional comedians predominantly from the US, is that a lot of them meditate.
Yeah.
A lot of them meditate. A lot of them focus on kind of self-help stuff.
Yeah.
Some of them are very religious.
Yeah.
Some, to varying degrees, but Gaffigan's quite religious.
Yeah.
Nate Bargatze, quite religious.
Oh, okay.
And then others that don't talk about it so much in their act.
I'll tell you a funny thing is that
Nate doesn't at all. But
yeah.
And Turner's religious.
Okay. I mean, for myself, I'm not religious, but I will do the whole meditation thing. Like, I'm very big on that.
Sure, and it's like a Venn diagram, right?
Yeah.
Like religious isn't spirituality, but together they can be. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you a funny story. That I was actually in the hospital ward, and I was sitting there looking out the window, but seated in, like how a lot of Muslims before they pray, they have to sit in that certain position called Vajrasana, which is where you in the hero's pose in yoga, or the one where basically like you're on your shins on the floor.
Yeah.
And your butt.
Prostrate.
Whatever. Yeah.
Prostrate.
Is that what it's called?
Prostrate.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I landed on totally the wrong word there.
Oh, okay. Like prostrate, like
on the ground with their finger in their butt.
Yeah,
prostrate. I think is the word.
I'm like looking for lumps.
I'm probably wrong about it. Someone's probably listening. They're like,
so
no.
It's funny because like I was sitting there like that because two reasons. Number one, it's supposed to be good for digestion. Number one, right? And number two is like I'm stretching my shins. I'm looking out the window. The doctor was doing his rounds. He did the guy next to me and looked at me. He was waiting, and I was like, why is the doctor not? Did the doctor leave? I'm like, I turned around. The doctor's like, oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were busy. I'm like, oh no, I'm not Muslim.
Yeah. I'm just stretching.
Yeah, I think I'm like, well, you think I'm gonna be like, wouldn't I need like a carpet or something? And would I really? That's not even north, but okay, whatever, So the whole thing I like to do is before shows is that I would like to stretch or sit in one of these positions or kind of like just stretch my body where I'm distracted from the show because I'm in so much pain from stretching.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like before I do corporate gigs where I'm emceeing, I'll stick my own cue cards. And the reason I do that is not because I don't want to pay for an assistant. Okay, one of the reasons. But the other one is that for those 10 minutes of sticking cue cards, my brain is just shut off.
Yeah, I like that. I hate to try to put words to my thoughts because I feel like as soon as you start to put words to it, it makes it sound a bit more kooky than it really is, like spiritual. When in reality, it's more just like for lack of better words,
Yeah.
But like there's an energy in rooms, like a room has got a good energy. You can walk into a room, you're like, this show's going to go well.
Yeah.
These people are in a good mood. The energy's rocking in here.
Yeah.
And I always try to connect with the energy of the room. You know? Like I don't want to.
It's hard to explain.
I went through a phase of going straight from outside on stage.
Oh.
And I realized that you don't know where the room's at. You don't know what their energy is. And then you come in with a different energy and it can be pretty jarring for everybody.
Yeah.
And so I like to get in the room and just kind of sit in it a bit.
Yeah. Same here. I like to be in the room.
Yeah.
Like even for private events and stuff, I ask them.
And you're trying to connect with the moment.
Yeah.
So that you can pick it up and then be in control of it.
Yeah. You're trying to feel it. Like you said, the energy element is one of these other things that, again, with spirituality, is a lot of the world's all energy and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, but it's like I just don't know how to describe it in a different way.
Yeah. I think
what I'm saying is real experience and it's real content that I can connect with to do a better job.
Yeah.
And achieve what I'm trying to do better.
Yeah. I think that boils down to anyone who has to deal with people in general. Like the whole energy factor actually works with anything, presentations or even like HR or interviews, stuff like that.
Yeah, you know, people. I always see comedians are professional people readers.
Yeah.
You ever hear that?
Yeah.
And it's so true.
Yeah,
like
correct.
when there's something about being on stage regularly in front of lots of people and trying to figure them all out. Like when you're one-on-one, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, this is easy.
Yeah.
I can pull you apart
Because you can easily
fast.
see the response. You're like, okay, I see what's
You're
going
just
on.
reading,
Yeah.
you know, you're catching.
The little nods.
Are they
here.
standoffish? Are they, you know,
Yeah.
welcoming?
The words they
whatever.
respond with, like, I mean, real simple thing I tell people is that the whole spirituality thing is that we put that aside. It's more like we are just simply every single moment trying to observe what's around us, the energy in the room, the people, the response, the whole world. Like, because the observation skills are really important for comedians. So it's not really that we're more spiritual. It's just that we're noticing more of the world inside and outside.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's part of the job.
And I think that's true of any creative pursuit.
Yeah.
It's not limited to comedians. It's like if anybody that's creative is facing the challenge of self-reflection.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, especially when you're it might look like a comedian is creating when they're on stage.
Yeah.
Quite often they're not.
Yeah. It's kind of
You
ready-made,
know,
but
quite often they're going through the motions.
Yeah.
That's not to say you can't create on stage.
yeah.
But the more creative time is usually when you're writing.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, what I imagine, you know, the challenge of a blank page, you know, what writers face and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And that starts to get into the world of spirituality because you start to think like, what is it that I've experienced? Like, what is it that I need to put into the world? How do these things all connect? Who am I? Is
Yeah.
there a God?
Yeah.
Am I going to get 42 virgins after I bomb the
72,
show?
but okay, yeah.
72.
Yeah.
I gotta, you gotta upgrade.
Oh, when they talked about it, I'm like, let me write that down.
72.
That's important to know.
That's not in this city.
Yeah, not in this city, man. Yeah, not happening, man. And it'll be a crammed old room. I'm like, I wish it was only 42. I don't have space for 72 of you guys. I can't take it. I only have a 300 square foot apartment.
Hong Kong heaven. It's 2 virgins.
Yeah,
and,
that's good enough. I'm like,
they're
could
standing.
You could you stick to the wall, please, so I have some space
Can
to
we just put
move.
some Velcro on the roof?
Yeah.
Just put it like a Velcro
Then
suit.
just stick there for a while. You'll peel off when the time is right.
Oh my god, that's.
Gravity will do its job. When I
Could you give me
shake.
that broom? I need to shake off one of these virgins. I'm feeling self-reflective.
Exactly. Oh, and speaking of self-reflective, don't look in the mirror. Thank you. You know, but no. Okay, so So this is the thing I talk about. So spirituality, put aside the whole meditation and everything, right? Have you found that when you are like doing regular, like, how often do you meditate?
Twice a day.
So twice a day.
I mean, I try to. It's not like I'll get it every time.
Damn. When you said twice, my brain's like, okay, a week. That makes sense. A day. I'm like, whoa, that's
Well,
good.
how often do you do it?
Maybe like once a day, man.
Yeah, twice is good, dude.
Yeah, I can imagine. Like, what, morning and night?
Yeah, well, like afternoon.
Oh, okay.
It's
Wow.
it's harder to slot in the late one.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
but you get it in.
Yeah.
Just filling up the tank a little bit.
Yeah.
It's probably a bad analogy, but you know what I mean.
Hey, whatever it takes, man.
Metaphor.
Yeah. Okay,
Um,
that's good. So, I mean, the thing, have you noticed that, let's say you break the meditation, have you had like periods when, like, say, a whole week you haven't done it?
No.
Okay, so you've been pretty constant. I mean, for myself.
I'll have a week where I do it badly.
Oh, yeah, you can tell. You can sense where you're like getting distracted too easily, or it's just like not the same effect, right?
I think that there is, you know, you can go through a session and have peaks and troughs
Yeah.
in your focus. I think there's a longer cycle that we go through,
Yeah.
like a weeks or months long cycle where you're less present.
Yeah.
And if I look back over my life, I think of the times when, you know, I was partying more or getting less done. I was like, I was
yeah.
probably more distracted. I was like in
Because your brain's like, I gotta get some
a
stuff
trough
done.
of focus.
Yeah.
And I honestly, like, meditation's kind of, I think, allowed me to lift the trough a lot, even
Yeah,
on
yeah.
like a longer cycle.
Yeah, because you're in more control, right?
Yeah, well, you can see it, and seeing it starts to undo it.
Yeah. You have to
That's not
notice
to
it.
say that noticing you're distracted will stop you from being distracted.
Yeah.
But it will change how low the trough of distraction
It's
becomes.
just like saying, if you notice you're bombing on stage, it doesn't mean you're going to stop bombing, but
Yeah,
at least
maybe you can try to
maybe-
switch it up a little bit.
Yeah, maybe leave early. Right? Maybe
just
stop
bring
that
the next
topic.
comic up.
Exactly.
Maybe
right.
stop talking about rape for 5 minutes.
I mean,
you
like
know?
if you're gonna like I said, if you notice that certain interaction you did with the audience, like maybe commenting on someone's boobs and saying they're not big enough for Hooters and stuff, is not working.
I'm
it's-
not imagining which comic you're talking about. If I can call him a comic right now.
I'm just saying, if you notice that that's not the best thing, you might want to stop it.
Well, you can strategize, you
Yeah.
know, and I think
yeah,
that
you could own the place. That'll work.
Vivek, that's what I've always prized about you is your patented subtlety.
It's all meditation, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, some people have awareness. You know.
Yeah.
Some people don't. But I think that here's a thing that I'm working on. I guess is that when you realize you're distracted, there's a tendency to give up.
Yeah.
And actually, the reason I talk about this trough, metaphor, is that it allows me to, if you can lift the bottom,
Yeah.
it's like if you're fit, right?
Yeah.
And you're going to the gym all the time, you have those days where you can't lift as much.
Yeah.
It's like those can be the days where you make a difference.
Yeah.
It's like when
Correct.
you can lift the bottom, lift your lowest.
Yeah.
Then that's the moment when you can, eventually you'll start to
So
shake.
what you're saying is that you have to appreciate yourself at your lowest, because then you only deserve yourself at the
No, because
highest.
I'm not a hack comic. Everyone has done that joke. If you get love me at my best, I'm sorry, Sammy Ubbs, I love you, but you're like the 10 millionth customer on that joke.
Yeah. No, I think so. That's also with the comedy is that as a comedian, when you grow, what you'll find is you get different batches of comedians. You got the one batch that basically keeps working on the same stuff, right?
Yeah.
And they just keep doing the same thing, hoping that will work. The whole definition of insanity. You got that one group over there.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Same input, expecting different output, not happening.
But that's a lack of discipline.
Yeah, lack of discipline, also lack of motivation to realize that, dude, you need to do something more than just what you're doing now.
You got to have awareness that what you're doing isn't working.
Correct. Yeah. That's the first one, right? Then you got the other group that basically grows over time, but because of the motivation is not like I want to achieve a certain goal. It's like I'll have some fun with it, but if it works out, it's great. If it doesn't, it's cool. But they are willing to be aware that I want to improve. Because also the pressure from your peers of everyone else is doing, like for example, everyone else does new material. You're at open mic and you're like, oh man, I better have some new material, man. That pressure's there, and they're willing to accept it. But then you will still have that one guy who's like sees the whole show is all new material, and they will still, let's say, talk about, I don't know, let's say topless truck drivers. You will have, and
Let's
you're
just
like,
pick a random topic.
yeah, I'm like, and they're like, okay, we get it, dude, we get it. The topics, we get it, right? But my point is that you don't have that awareness of like, you know what, maybe I should up my game just for the sake of it all being changed.
Yeah, I think there's also a willingness to be uncomfortable.
Yes.
Because, focusing when you're unfocused is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Taking risks is uncomfortable. And the comfortable things that don't equal progress.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the people that flounder, and you see it all the time, it's the people who are just unwilling to admit that what they're doing isn't working and need some adjustment, are the people that just shockingly pour years into this thing.
Yeah.
I mean, stand-up is a bitch.
Yeah,
it is
it
a
is.
harsh mistress.
Yeah.
And if you want to pour, stand-up is like a casino.
Yeah.
If you want to drop all your
Oh, you
time and
can.
money in there,
Yeah.
it'll take it.
Yeah, it can.
You
But
know,
then you have to be
got to
smart
come in with
it.
a strategy
Yeah.
and beat the house.
Yeah, exactly. You're not just going in there be like, you know what, blackjack, I'm going to do 23. Like, what?
And I'm not just like, I don't even think this is just about people. It's like, you can do things yourself that you've got to go, all right, I got beaten on that game.
Yeah.
That didn't work.
Yeah.
But it's pulling it out, just too many jumping around here. But like, it's like Warren Buffett, I think, said, it's not whether you're right or wrong. It's how right you are when you're right and how
Yeah.
wrong you are when you're wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
It's
like,
the
can
degree.
you pull out of it
Yeah.
fast enough that you don't lose too much time?
Yeah.
And you can get back to moving forward?
Yeah. I think that is the whole Zen thing in everything in life, actually. That's like every Zen book, every 7 Habits, every, motivation book says the same thing. It's like, it's not a matter of avoiding the punches or avoiding the holes in the ground. It's a matter of like, you fall in the hole, can you climb up and restart? How good are you at that? I mean, the Rocky Balboa, that movie had it right. It's not about how hard the punch is. It's about how hard you can take a punch and still get back up. Bruce Lee said the same stuff. And I think ultimately that's what comedy.
Mike Tyson said, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face.
Oh, you mean everybody's got a plan after you get punched in the face?
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Yeah, yeah. I used to be a Mike Tyson imitator until they saw the whole body. I'm like, yeah.
You've done that before.
No, I've never done it
That was
before.
good.
Really? Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so that's the thing. I mean, that's another point is that talk is cheap. And I've had so many events and occasions where guys are, let's say, MCs, right? And maybe they've started doing workshops and teaching people to be
Haven't
MCs.
started doing comedy yet if they're MCs.
Haven't.
No, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, because they're just talking. Blah,
Yeah.
right? So the weirdest thing is that I've had events where the MC teacher will come to the show with their students and trying to like, okay, you see what he's doing over there, right? So what they're doing there, and I'm like, are you breaking down my comedy? But you're
Oh, yeah.
like
dude.
what, right?
Yeah.
And the point is that then the students are like, oh yeah, right, I'm really learning. I'm like, no, dude, why are you listening to this guy?
He has
right?
no idea what he's talking
He has
about.
no idea. He's just looking at a few elements. He doesn't know what's really going on stage and what's really going on behind the scene. But you have a lot of those. But I think ultimately, it comes down to every sort of basic human thing where it's comedy requires you to get punched all the time, right?
It is. You have
is
to
one
have
of
a
those-
relationship with being humiliated.
Yes, and it's one of those things where when you fail, you can't be sure why. You get it? You can't just ask your mentor or like a peer and be like, what did I do wrong? They're like, you weren't funny. That's too generic, right? With any other performance or any other stuff, what you will have is that you've got people kind of guiding you, oh, I see what you slipped. You know, you were dancing and you slipped. That's why it didn't work, right? But the thing is that with comedy is like, you weren't funny. Like, how do I fix that?
It's not so black and white. Why
Yeah.
weren't you funny? Like a set can not go well for a myriad of reasons. You know, maybe you messed up your likability. Maybe someone else on the show was too similar to you, which isn't an excuse.
Yeah.
But it's a different reason. It doesn't mean the jokes aren't good. It just
originality was lacking.
there is more to look into it. And you know what? I think that one of the reasons why comedians do can look for spirituality is a lack of structure.
Yeah.
People look for spirituality in the face of a lack of structure.
Correct,
A
yeah.
lot of the time.
And comedy
I
of
mean, that's
all
why
of them.
religion exists, really.
Yeah. It gives you a little belief, like, you know what, somehow it's going to work out.
So when you don't know what to do, it gives you some reference point,
Yeah.
even if that reference point is yourself.
Yeah. I mean, it's a two-edged sword. I always tell people, like, let's say in Islam, right, it's God willing, inshallah, right? And it's good because like it gives you that confidence that, you know, God's there with me. But also many people rely on it and like, well, I'm just going to sit here and God willing, I'll get rich. It's like, no, dude, you got to do something too. You get it? Like I've had, because I do go to schools
No,
and
God's
talk.
willing you to do something.
Yeah, he's like willing as in, will you do it, please, you know, God, you know. So my point is that that's the two-edged sword with spirituality and also like religion or whatever it is. With comedy, like you said, and I fully agree, is that it's so lack of structure that until you yourself are stable, you're not going to be able to survive.
Tough to move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the only way to be stable is, like I said, is to have a certain belief or a certain confidence, but that takes time.
You have to have some structure that you've agreed to, whether you've made it yourself or someone's guided you
Yeah.
to move forward. It's not
Yeah.
possible to move forward without that.
Exactly. Wow.
So I think that comedians can be spiritual. I know they are. I know a
Yeah.
lot of them are.
I know. Yeah. A lot of them are. I'll put it this way. A lot of them are. I have met some who are spiritual for the cool factor of it.
Really?
Yeah, dude. Like the guy's like, oh yeah, man. You know, I'm meditating. I go yoga. I'm
Oh
like,
man, I'm embarrassed about it.
like I don't go. Like I'm not
like, oh god, yeah, I admit it.
Yeah. I'm like, I need that. I'm not good enough. I need to sit alone in my
Yeah,
room.
it's my
right?
meth.
Yeah,
It's my crystal
yeah,
meth.
exactly. Yeah, you know. But you have some of them who like I said, I've met people who maybe done comedy before or done sort of performances, and then they do their talks, and then the whole thing about like I'm an artist and, you know, to find my inner art, the way they talk, you're like, oh god, here we go.
But I feel like some art lends itself to being pretentious.
Yes.
But stand-up doesn't.
Yeah.
Because if you are pretentious, that's a facade that crowds won't like.
Correct. That's what I love about stand-up. There's no like, oh, I'm
It's the best way to do art.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not, people aren't there. Here's what I love about it, right? Like, if you make a painting and it's in an art gallery, people are incentivized to act like they understand it
Yes.
and act like they put it on a pedestal.
Yeah.
Stand-up's totally the opposite. People are like, I'm going to think you suck. I'm going to have pride in saying you
Until-
suck unless you can really make me laugh.
Yeah.
And I've had people I've made laugh tell me that something wasn't funny.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you don't get to say that. You already laughed at
Yeah,
it.
yeah, exactly.
Like
yeah.
your body beat your brain, you know.
You don't get to go, ha ha ha, that's a terrible joke.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was on a TV show in China, and they're
Yeah.
like, "Can you do a joke?" I go like, "I do this joke," and she laughed and goes, "You can't do that." I'm like, "Why?" She goes, "Not funny." I'm like, "You just laughed when I said
Yeah.
it." She's like, "No, but because it was silly." I'm like, "It's a joke."
Yeah, and that's how it works. The laughter is the
I don't know
final
what you're
product.
expecting.
Yeah, what do you want, like a motivational class or something? You want a philosophy behind it?
Dude, this is great. I'm really great we did this today.
Yeah, I'm
Thank
going to go
you for-
meditate in the afternoon for a change now.
I was meditate for most of this. I don't know what you said. I'm going to have to listen to it again.